Welcome back to the deep dive. I want to start us off today with a little visualization exercise.
Oh, I love these.
Right. So I want you to close your eyes. Unless you're driving, please don't close your eyes if you're driving.
Yeah, keep your eyes on the road, please.
Exactly. But if you're somewhere safe, close your eyes and picture yourself at your absolute peak. You've just achieved the thing you've been working toward for years.
The big win.
The huge win. Maybe you launched that business, or you got that massive promotion, or you finally published that novel. You are on top of the world. You are the adult, successful version of you.
It's a really good feeling. Victory lap.
It is. Now, keep that feeling. And imagine you get in your car and drive across the city limit line of your hometown. You pull into the driveway of the house you grew up in. Yeah. You walk through the front door. And instantly snap, the CEO vanishes, the author vanishes. And suddenly you are 12 years old again. You feel small. You feel clumsy. You're terrified of breaking a vase. You're just waiting for someone to yell at you for not taking your shoes off.
Oh, that's a visceral shift. It's the hometown haunt. It's so universal.
Yeah.
I mean, you can be a captain of industry in New York, but in your childhood living room, you're just the kid who spilled the juice.
It's terrifying, isn't it? That feeling of total regression. Well, today we are diving into a ghost story. But the ghost isn't a lady in white floating down a hallway.
No, the ghost is the past.
Exactly. The ghost is the version of ourselves we thought we left behind, and the cursed object in this story isn't a creepy porcelain doll or an ancient amulet.
No. In this case, the haunted object is a sweater, a cardigan sent by a mother.
Which, let's be honest, carries way more emotional weight than any ancient amulet ever could.
It absolutely does. The baggage is real.
Today we are doing a deep dive into session 316 of the Seth Material. Specifically, we are looking at the early sessions, Book 7. The date of record is February 1st, 1967. And we are also pairing this with a really fascinating document from the very next day, February 2nd, which is a detailed dream report.
And just to set the stage for everyone, this is a pivotal moment in the lives of Jane Roberts, who speaks for the personality essence known as Seth and her husband, Rob Butts. Jane, who Seth refers to as Ruburt, has just hit that peak we talked about in the visualization. She has published a book.
Right. How to develop your ESP power. It's out in the world. People are buying it.
Including people in her hometown of Saratoga Springs, New York.
So she should be celebrating. This is the whole local girl makes good story. But instead of champagne and parties, we find Jane in a state of absolute crisis. I mean, she's immobilized, she's in physical pain, she's terrified, and she is convinced that her hometown is actively out to get her.
It's a classic, albeit extreme, case of the vulnerability of success.
So our mission today is to really unpack this haunting. We're going to look at how success can trigger deep-seated fears. We're going to explore the mechanics of how physical objects like that sweater can carry emotional curses. And finally, we're going to analyze a wild, lucid dream about saving the soul of a poet.
It's quite a journey, from physical paralysis to dream state liberation, and it gets pretty weird in the middle. I mean, we're talking time travel and cavemen.
It wouldn't be the Seth Material without a little high strangeness. But before we jump into the spookiness, just a quick housekeeping note. I need to declare this podcast will be distributed free of charge on all major platforms for educational purposes.
Always good to be clear on that.
Okay, let's unpack this. February 1st, 1967, Jane Roberts, successful author. But the session opens with Seth addressing the elephant in the room. Jane is physically hurting. Her hip is sore, she's limping, she's essentially immobilized.
And Seth, acting almost like a forensic psychologist here, completely bypasses the physical symptoms. He doesn't say, you pulled a muscle. He goes straight to the root cause. He says the book is the problem. Or rather, Jane's reaction to the book being read in Saratoga.
There is a quote here that really sets up the psychological stakes. Seth says, to some extent, the fact that Rupert's book is being read in his hometown disconcerts him. And then he drops this hammer. Those whom he relegated to the past are brought into the present. This causes some panic. There's a feeling that he is back in their control.
Let's stop and really look at that phrase. Relegated to the past. That is such a heavy, active verb. It implies force. It implies effort. Think about how we survive difficult childhoods or toxic environments. We survive by compartmentalizing.
Right. We take the bullies, the critical teachers, the difficult family members, and we shove them into a mental box labeled history. We lock the box. We throw away the key. We say, I am safe now because they are back there in 1950 and I am here in the present.
Exactly. The safety relies entirely on the separation, temporal distance and physical distance.
Yeah.
But when you publish a book, or in the modern day, Maybe you go viral on social media. What are you doing? You are building a bridge.
You're handing them the key to the box.
You are taking your inner thoughts, your private world, which is what a book is, and you are physically handing it to the people you locked away. You are inviting the past into the present.
And suddenly the timeline collapses. Seth says he has shown himself, so to speak, and can therefore be a target.
It's the paradox of the artist, isn't it? You want to be known. You crave recognition. But to be known is to be observable. And if you are observed by people who you feel used to control you, you feel that loss of autonomy all over again. You feel like a child being watched by a critical parent.
It's like, look at me. No, wait, don't look at me.
Precisely. Seth notes that Jane wanted to be known as a successful writer in Saratoga. She wanted the validation. But to get that, she had to be known again. She had to let them perceive her.
And this leads to this tragic, but also kind of darkly funny image that Seth describes. He talks about Jane visiting Saratoga. Now picture this. She's a grown woman, she's an intellectual, she's a channel for a multidimensional entity. But when she visits her hometown, Seth says he is afraid, literally walking the streets of Saratoga, sneaking in and out when he visits.
Leaking.
Like she's a fugitive.
A fugitive in her own biography. It implies guilt. It implies she feels she's doing something wrong just by existing. Why? Because as Seth puts it, here he feels is the best part of himself, unprotected, and the self he tried really to hide, now displayed.
She feels naked. She has handed her inner world to people she fundamentally doesn't trust.
And because she doesn't trust them, she assumes they are attacking her. This brings up a really crucial point about the law of attraction or reality creation. Jean feels attacked. She feels the judgment of the town. She probably imagines people whispering about her in the grocery store.
But Seth flips it on its head.
He really does. He says, because of these feelings, he reacts as if he is being attacked. The feelings, however, are the cause of the attack. For these feelings attract those elements that would otherwise be harmless.
That is a tough pill to swallow. So if she walked in there confident, head held high, the attack wouldn't exist.
Or would be irrelevant. Think about it. If you walk into a room cowering, looking over your shoulder, radiating, please don't hit me energy, you are signaling victimhood. You are magnetized to aggression. You are interpreting every glance as a glare.
You're writing the script of your own victimization.
Exactly. Seth says he should remember here that he is not the person who lived in Saratoga now, unless he chooses in a self-limiting way to be so.
We are only our past selves if we choose to put that costume back on. Jane was putting on the costume of the Saratoga victim and then wondering why it fits so well.
And speaking of costumes, we have to talk about the sweater.
Oh, man. The sweater! This part of the session is straight out of a gothic horror novel.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it introduces a fascinating concept called psychometry.
Which is the idea that objects can hold energy.
Right. That physical matter can be imprinted with emotional data. That you can pick up a ring or a watch or a piece of clothing and read the history of the person who owned it. Or the person who made it.
So in this session, Seth brings up clothing sent by his mother.
Now, for context, Jane's relationship with her mother was extremely complicated. Her mother was chronically ill, bedridden with severe rheumatoid arthritis. She was often in pain, often critical, and the household dynamic was very heavy and demanding.
So her mom sends a care package, clothes, a sweater, nice gesture.
On the surface, sure. But listen to what Seth says about the mechanism here. He says the clothing has been somewhat dangerous to him.
Dangerous. It's woolen buttons.
Why is it dangerous? Seth explains. Because his feelings automatically extracted from them the negative feelings of his mother toward him, while blocking out the constructive and loving ones.
Wait, so the sweater wasn't inherently evil. It's that Jane's expectation acted like a filter.
Exactly. Imagine the sweater is a radio signal. It contains a complex mix of the mother's energy. Maybe some genuine motherly love, maybe some pride, but also her bitterness, her pain, her criticism. Jane's internal receiver was set strictly to criticism FM.
She tuned out the love.
She blocked out the constructive and loving ones and extracted the poison.
That is heartbreaking. It implies the love actually was there. She just couldn't or wouldn't feel it.
It shows how powerful our interpretive mechanism is. We can take a neutral or even positive object and turn it into a cursed artifact just by what we project onto it. But the damage was real. It wasn't just bad vibes. It was manifesting physically.
Right. We mentioned Jane was immobilized, a sore hip, difficulty walking.
Yes. And Seth links this directly to mother identification.
That sounds like a heavy psychological concept.
It is. It's when a child, out of deep empathy or fear or a desire for connection, begins to mimic the parent. In this case, Jane's mother had limited mobility due to arthritis. Jane, in her state of panic about the book in the past, started to physically mimic her mother's illness.
Seth says the immobilization was partially a fear reaction. She was acting out the role of the crippled woman because that was the model of womanhood she associated with that town.
And Seth lists these specific triggers that set this off. And I love this list because it seems so random, but it's so hyper-specific to Jane's history. It really shows how our subconscious works by association.
Let's run through them. First trigger, sneakers.
Sneakers, why? Seth says it connects to the early grades, a kindergarten room with blocks and small stools and cloakroom. This was the time period when her mother was just starting to come down with arthritis. So putting on sneakers, maybe the smell of the rubber, the feeling of the canvas, subconsciously transports Jane back to the exact moment the trauma began.
It's a sensory time machine. Next trigger,
Right.
beads.
This one is so visual. Seth says there was some sensitivity to beads at this time, only due to a picture in which his mother wears them with short skirts.
So it's a specific memory of a photograph.
Yes, a frozen moment in time. The mother in the photo is vivid, so wearing beads creates a direct link to that image and that era.
And the third one, cats.
Now, Jane and Rob loved their cat, Willie. They were cat people. But Seth notes that Jane's mother was superstitiously afraid of cats.
Which is a very specific kind of fear.
And Jane had a recent incident where a cat caught a bird in her bedroom.
Oh, yikes. That's startling.
And in that moment of stress, Seth says Jane identified with the bird the cat caught.
She felt like the prey.
And because her mother feared cats, Jane slipped right into her mother's fear. It's this web of associations, sneakers, beads, cats, all leading back to one thing, becoming her mother, becoming the crippled, fearful woman.
Seth even mentions that Jane's physical symptoms were direct mimicry of the mother in this identification. She was literally acting out her mother's arthritis.
Because if she becomes her mother, perhaps she can understand her. Or perhaps it's the only way she knows how to relate to that energy. But it's destructive. It's stripping her of her own identity.
And it wasn't just the mother. The father figure gets dragged into this too.
Right. We can't leave out the other side of the parental coin.
Jane's publisher is a man named Frederick Fell.
Great name for a publisher, by the way. Fell.
It really is. But Jane is terrified of him. She's afraid he won't pay her. She's afraid he'll let her down. And Seth says this is a total projection of her father.
Seth is very clear here. He says, because of the temporary mother identification, he was open to the suggestion he had concerning his publisher as the father of his book, you see.
The father of his book. Wow.
And look at the financial parallel. Seth notes that Jane only wrote to her biological father when she needed money as a child. It was a transactional, desperate relationship. And now she feels she only contacts Fell when she wants money.
So she feels like a dependent child again.
Fell was late on payments, as his father had been late. It's history repeating itself. She's trapped in a loop where the publisher is the deadbeat dad and she is the helpless mother waiting for a welfare check.
No wonder she's paralyzed. She's living out a Greek tragedy in her own living room.
It is an immense amount of psychic pressure. She feels cornered. Seth says she felt as if Rob was saying, I told you so, your deepest fears will be realized.
So, what is the cure? You'd expect a spirit guide, a multidimensional teacher to suggest meditation, or maybe fasting, or chanting Om for 3 hours.
You would.
Yeah.
But Seth is incredibly practical. And sometimes Seth is downright hilarious.
I laughed out loud at this part. Seth's prescription for breaking this unwholesome identification with the mother is alcohol and swearing.
It's brilliant, really.
Seth says to Rob, your parties were helpful.
He says, the moderate drinking helped reunite the conscious and subconscious as a total self. The swearing bears a direct relationship to the mother's language.
Okay, help us understand this. How does a gin and tonic and dropping an F-bomb heal a spiritual crisis?
Think about the mother identification. Jane is mimicking her mother. Her mother was rigid. Her mother was good in a very restrictive, small-town way. Her mother likely didn't swear.
So the good girl persona is the trap.
Right. Alcohol, in moderation, lowers inhibitions. It loosens the rigid control the conscious mind, the ego, is holding. It allows the subconscious, the part that wants to run and dance, to merge back with the conscious self.
It reunites them.
Exactly. It breaks the rigidity. And the swearing, that's even more specific. By swearing, Jane is linguistically separating herself from her mother. She is saying, I am not you. I speak differently. I am rougher. I am louder. I am my own person.
It's an act of rebellion.
A completely necessary one.
Yeah.
To break the spell, she had to do things her mother wouldn't do. She had to shock her own system, back into autonomy.
That is so counterintuitive, but it makes perfect sense. It's like shock therapy for the personality.
Seth also suggests something a bit more gentle. He advises positive suggestions, and he suggests writing a letter to her mother.
But with a caveat.
A huge caveat. He says he should not attempt at this time to write anything more than a friendly letter to his mother. When he tried to open up in a letter, he panics.
Keep it surface level.
For now. Because opening up implies vulnerability. And remember, vulnerability is what started this whole attack sensation. She needs to rebuild her walls before she can open the gate again.
Seth also mentions using the pendulum.
Yes, the pendulum was a tool they used for accessing subconscious answers. Simple yes or no questions. Seth says, the pendulum sessions are helping indeed. It's a way of bypassing the fearful ego and getting straight answers from the inner self.
Now, before we move to the dream, there's this weird little nugget at the very end of the session. It's a blink and you'll miss it moment, but it is high strangeness at its finest.
Oh, the caveman?
Jane asks Seth about a dream she had concerning primitive men.
And Seth's answer is mind-bending. He doesn't say, oh, it was symbolic of your primal fears. He says, the cavemen were pseudo-realities. There was a time travel here, but it was into a probable past.
A probable past.
This is a core Seth concept. The idea that time isn't a single line. There are infinite variations. Seth says, you knew that this was a reality in which you had not participated. You were in no danger within it, for you never existed in it.
So she time traveled in her sleep to a timeline where Jane Roberts was never born.
Essentially. And the cavemen, Seth says, the others were probability travelers like yourself.
Wait, so the cavemen weren't just dream characters. They were other souls hopping timelines.
That seems to be the implication. He calls them probability travelers. It suggests that in the dream state, we aren't just hallucinating. We are exploring the multiverse. We are visiting timelines that could have happened or did happen in a different framework.
That is a lot to take in right before bed. Good night, honey. I'm off to visit a timeline where I'm a dinosaur.
It reframes the whole idea of dreaming, doesn't it? It's not passive, it's active exploration.
Which is the perfect segue to the second source we have today, the Dream Report from February 6, 1967.
The very next day.
Jane wakes up, or rather she tries to sleep, fails, and then falls into this incredibly vivid, lucid dream. She calls it therapeutic.
And considering the session they just had, she definitely needed some therapy.
Let's walk through this dream because it is cinematic. It plays out in sequences. Sequence 1 starts in a college-like atmosphere.
A place of learning.
She describes triangular A-type affairs for houses, multicolored pastels, glass walls. It sounds very futuristic, very utopian.
And notice the physical state. In waking life, she's immobilized with hip pain. In the dream, she says, as I talk, I do yoga exercises easily and am surprised at this.
She's free. Her body is fluid.
This is the first step of the healing. Experiencing herself as whole, she is reminding her subconscious of what it feels like to move without the mother's arthritis.
And then we get to the second sequence, the astral male.
This is a classic lucid dreaming trope. Reading text in a dream is notoriously difficult because the language centers of the brain aren't fully engaged in the same way.
She sees male on a room divider. She knows she is dreaming. She says, I was in my astral body, though. She tries to read the postmark. She's squinting, holding it close.
She makes out a New York postmark. She's trying to bring back concrete data. She wants proof.
But then the packages appear.
The manifestation.
She sees packages that weren't there a moment before. She opens them, and inside, several pair of lovely pastel stockings with baubles of some kind.
Stockings. Think about the symbolism. Something to wear on the legs. The legs that are currently hurting her in real life. She is receiving a gift for her legs.
And she is delighted. She is so happy. But then the lucid realization hits her. She knows she's dreaming. She knows she's about to wake up.
And she tries to cheat the system. We've all done this in a really good dream.
She says, I am determined to take my packages back with me, will not let them go. I stuff the things back into the large bags and hold them tight to my chest, hearing the paper crinkle.
That sensory detail, hearing the paper crinkle, is so important. She's trying to solidify the illusion. She wants to bring the treasure of the dream world into the poverty of the physical world.
But she fails. She says, instead I waken and they are gone. I feel like crying.
It's a moment of profound loss. It highlights the separation she feels between her inner richness, her creativity, her spirit, and her outer physical reality, which feels lacking, painful, and poor.
But she doesn't stop there. She drifts back into the dream, and this is the climax, the third sequence.
The confrontation with the poet.
Jane is in the same town. She meets a girl who is crying. The girl has light brown hair, rather dark circles under her eyes, and is somewhat younger than I.
I think it's safe to say she is meeting a version of herself. A younger, sadder Jane. Maybe the Jane who lived in Saratoga.
The girl says she has decided to stop writing poetry. She's quitting. She can't handle the pressure.
And Jane Ruburt explodes.
She goes full motivational speaker. No, stronger than that. She goes full prophet.
She realizes she can't let this girl quit, because if the girl quits, the magic dies.
Jane tells her, you can't just decide consciously to give up writing poetry. You'd write it anyhow, though you could subconsciously make such a decision and never know about it at all.
A massive warning about repression.
Yeah.
If you suppress your creativity, it will fester in the subconscious. It will come out sideways as anxiety or illness.
And then she delivers this speech. I have to read this quote in full because it is stunning. She tells the girl, poetry is your characteristic method of expression, your way of translating the data into physical reality, and that even its rhythm is the rhythm of your heartbeat.
The rhythm of your heartbeat. That is the core message. Poetry creativity isn't a hobby. It isn't a job. It's a biological necessity for her. It is how she translates existence.
If she stops writing, her heart stops beating, metaphorically and maybe even physically, given the symptoms she's having.
Jane then describes hunting her down. The girl tries to run away, cringing, but Jane pursues her, yelling, "Where are all my friends who are going to write no matter what? Where are they all? And now I work alone."
She's mourning the loss of her artistic community, and she's furious at the part of herself that wants to give up out of fear.
The friends in the dream say, "She's in bad shape. You've made things worse." They try to protect the crying girl, but Jane knows better. She says, "No, you can't save a part of her. You have to save the poetry too."
You can't save the woman and kill the poet. They are one organism.
That is the breakthrough. The Saratoga syndrome, the fear of the book, the mother identification. It was all an attempt to stay safe by suppressing the poet, the part that exposes herself to the world. But in the dream, she realizes that saving the poet is the only way to survive.
And it ends with her asking the dream characters, do you know how to work the pendulum? And they say yes. And she wakes up feeling refreshed, revitalized.
She reintegrated the fragmented parts of herself. She accepted the poet.
So did it work? We have the session, the booze, the swearing, and the dream.
We have concrete evidence that it did.
We have an image of a handwritten note provided in the source material. It's scrawled, a bit messy, but the message is clear.
It reads, "Han, I'm remarkably better. Neck, arms, completely released hands, wildly improved feet too. Think something happened and I'm out of it all. I love you. Jay."
I think something happened and I'm out of it all.
The fever broke. The hunting of Saratoga was completely lifted.
It's amazing to see the progression. Day 1, paralysis and terror. Day 2, the dream. Day 3, I'm out of it all.
It really validates the Seth approach that we create our reality through our beliefs and feelings. When she changed the internal landscape through the dream work and the shock therapy of swearing and drinking, the physical landscape shifted immediately.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener who hasn't published a book and isn't currently being haunted by a sweater?
I think it's a powerful reminder about the objects and places we carry with us.
We all have a Saratoga.
We really do. We all have a version of the past where we felt small,
Hmm?
and we have to be careful not to sneak around our own lives for fear of alerting those old ghosts.
And we have to check our sweaters. If there is something in your life, a gift, an heirloom, a habit that drains you, ask yourself, am I extracting negative energy from this? Am I using this object to hurt myself?
And finally, the lesson of the poet. You cannot save yourself by sacrificing your passion, whatever your poetry is, coding, gardening, teaching, parenting. If it is the rhythm of your heartbeat, you silence it at your own peril.
You have to save the poetry, too. That's going to stick with me.
Me too.
Here's a final provocative thought for you to mull over tonight. If Seth is right, and physical objects like that sweater can extract and store negative history, does it work the other way? Can you consciously charge an object, a ring, a stone, a pen, with so much protection and power that it becomes a battery for your own confidence?
And when you close your eyes tonight, are you just dreaming? Or are you a probability traveler packing your bags to visit a timeline where you made completely different choices?
And if you see a caveman, say hello for us.
Indeed.
We want to give full credit to the source of today's deep dive, the incredible Seth Material by Jane Roberts and Ruburt, and the publisher New Awareness Network.
If this conversation sparked something in you, and I suspect it did, we highly encourage you to go to the source, read the books, visit the New Awareness Network website and bookstore at sethcenter.com/the early sessions. There is so much more in those pages than we could ever cover in an hour.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for diving deep with us. Keep asking questions, keep recording your dreams, and we'll see you in the next probability.
Goodbye.